When it comes to marketing, there are a lot of mistakes that people make, but really, if you think about it holistically, one of the biggest mistakes that people are making when they're trying to grow their company is planning and setting up a marketing process. It's something that causes a lot of disjointed function. It causes a lot of lost opportunities. Fortunately, Andy Culligan came in. This guy's a rock star. He's had all kinds of success marketing himself, his companies, and other companies. In fact, he helps big-time software companies know how to generate crazy number of leads and interest. And he came in and shared some of his best advice on how you can set up a marketing plan, a marketing process, so that you can really take off as well. Check this out. I think you're going to like it.
Welcome to Scale Your SaaS, the podcast that gives you proven techniques and formulas for boosting your revenue and achieving your dream exit. Brought to you by a guy who's done just that multiple times. Here's your host, Matt Wolach.
Hello and welcome to Scale Your SaaS. Thank you very much for joining us here. By the way, if this is your first time to the show, we do a lot of good stuff here. We're here to help you generate a whole bunch of great leads. We want to make sure that you know how to close those leads quickly and efficiently, and that you can scale a team so you can get your SaaS to the spot it needs to get. If you want to do any of those things, hit the subscribe button right now. That way you will get notifications of when we release new episodes. In each new episode, I bring in a special guest who's some sort of expert who knows exactly how to do one of those things I told you. And one of those experts that's here with me today is Andy Culligan. Andy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. And except for roasting, like we talked about before, how it's midsummer and we're burning up here, but hopefully we'll be able to stay cool. Let me tell everybody who you are, Andy. So Andy, he is the founder at andyculligan.com. He is a marketing expert. He's a leader specializing in revenue growth and scaling SaaS businesses. He's got close to a decade of experience in both marketing and sales. He also excels as a fractional CMO, a CRO, and a marketing advisor. What he does is he focuses on personalized marketing strategies that create meaningful touch points, ultimately boosting revenue for his clients. AndyCulligan.com, that's where he helps fast-growing SaaS startups achieve commercial success through strategic alignment. I'm super excited to have him here so he can share his knowledge with us. Andy, thanks for coming on the show.
Sure thing. Looking forward to it.
Likewise. So tell me, what have you been doing lately and what's coming up for you?
Oh, the fun never stops, you know. There's been quite a bit going on, actually. It's funny, like, because I started the business sort of by accident a number of years ago, like I've been running it now for 3 years, and I left a full-time CMO position at a company called Leadfeeder. People may or may not be familiar with Volume SaaS product. And I was a CMO there for a number of years, and I actually got really tired and I was on the brink of burnout. I was like, if I keep going at this pace, it's going to kill me. So I just stepped away. It was during COVID. We seen exponential growth during COVID with very little resource, and it was a time when it was like, okay, we need to be careful with spend, but at the same time, we're growing rapidly. So it was just craziness. And COVID just generally with a young family and everything at home and how that was with lockdowns and all that jazz. At the end of that, I was just fried, you know. So it wasn't just work, it was just everything, right? So I stepped away from the business, and people just started reaching out, being like, hey, can you help? And or would you like a full-time position? And I was like, I definitely don't want a full-time position now, but I can help. And then it just sort of kept going from there. And I was introduced on a board meeting a couple of months later as like, hey, this is our fractional CMO, Andy. And I'd never even heard of the term fractional CMO, right? So, and from there, I started working with numerous businesses, and even in the past year and a half or so, started placing not just myself, but also teams at organizations. And now actually we're looking to scale that. Now, you might know yourself, Matt, when you're running a services business like what I have, it's different to a SaaS business, right? I work with SaaS businesses, but ultimately I offer a service. So it's very hard to scale, right? And that's been something that's been like banging around in my head since I actually started the business properly, right? Like how do I get this to scale properly? And we have a project that's going to be launched in September, which is focused on scaling this. And it's going to be a new entity, a new business that I'm doing with a number of guys that I've been working very closely with for almost the past 10 years at different SaaS organizations. And it's going to be focused on placing teams rather than just me.
We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Matt. If you're anything like me, you check your website analytics and you see people coming to your site, but you have no idea who they are or what they're doing. Plus, why aren't they converting into leads? That's why I now use Lead Feeder. This thing is slick. Lead Feeder is a tool that shows me which companies are coming to my site, plus which pages they visited and in which order. So I can see their interest level just by what they're doing. You can use it too. You can track your site visitors' behavior and integrate the data from Lead Feeder with your CRM that helps make your lead generation efforts more targeted. The result, website traffic converts to sales. Click the link in the description and go to leadfeeder.com for a free demo and get a free extended premium trial when you let the rep know that you heard Lead Feeder through the Scale Your SaaS podcast. Finally know who's visiting your site with Lead Feeder. Do it.
And we're back.
So it's not just focused on Andy, but focused on all of the different elements within the marketing mix. And we've done that already at a couple of clients under my brand. And we said to get this rolling a bit further, we take other marketers under the wing as well and get them working with brands as well. There's so many fractional marketers out there at the minute that we need to get that like somewhat organized and make sure that they're placed in places. And I've been relatively successful with that, doing it myself. So, and I see that as the next way of scaling. And that's what's going on at the minute, as well as serving clients, right? So I have a number of businesses that I'm working with. So I'm currently working with four SaaS businesses in some shape or form, whether it's fractional CMO or marketing advisor or working in a chief revenue officer type of role, or revenue operations is another role that I do, or managing SDRs. As I said at the beginning, the fun never really stops, but that's sort of what's going on at the minute, and that's what's coming up.
Wow, you definitely have a lot of irons in the fire, that's for sure. And I love that you're kind of bouncing around, taking care of lots of different things, shows that you're very capable. I want to talk to you because you mentioned fractional, and fractional executives have really been gaining traction in most recent years. And can you talk to us and kind of explain to the audience what that means for a fractional executive? If you're looking at, bringing somebody on the team, when is it the right time to bring in a fractional piece versus maybe a full-time person? And how can a company leverage that fractional use?
Sure. So let's start with maybe like the roles that are typically fractional nowadays as well. I think originally you would have seen quite a lot of fractional CFOs. I think that was like the first one that came in, was this sort of chief financial officer role. And then I think following that was marketing. And then following that, now we're starting to see like product roles as well, which is interesting. I can really only speak in my realm, which is in the marketing side of things. When is the right time to bring in a fractional leader? It's probably, there's a couple of different times for it. So let's say, for example, you've got a team existing already, and you're thinking, hey, I need to bring in somebody I'm at the stage now where I'm probably somewhere in the region of about 10 million in revenue. So 10 million annual recurring revenue. I probably need to bring in a CMO, but I'm not entirely certain about it. So you get a lot of CEOs, founders that are like, okay, is it really time for a CMO? Do I just need somebody that's going to be able to crack the team into shape and make sure that we have a proper marketing plan that's being executed, etc.? In that case, then a fractional CMO is perfect because it's risk-free for you. So you can come in and say, okay, I need a CMO, or I need to test the CMO and see if this is the right fit for my business at this particular moment in time. And it's, the great thing with fractional leadership is that you can really get rid of them overnight. Like I shouldn't be promoting that, but that's actually one of the one of the selling factors, where I say, hey, look, It's not, I can start in the morning and you can decide after a week and say, hey, no, this is not working, or which has never happened. But it's also after you can decide whether or not you're ready for a CMO. Because I've been in businesses before that really just need somebody that's going to be able to crack a whip for a while and make sure that the team know what they're doing, right?
So
and the CEO doesn't need to worry about it, right? And with a fractional CMO, you can decide on that. And then when the time comes to bring in a full-time CMO, even that fractional CMO might be able to help you source that person, right? And they typically know what to look for. And generally, that's going to be a much better cost exercise than going and hiring the wrong fit, or hiring somebody too soon that's not going to want to roll up the sleeves and get stuff done or whatever. And then ultimately you're 12 months into a bad decision, you're going to have to part ways. That's going to be expensive because you're probably going to have to pay out something, but you've also probably sourced that CMO from a recruiter. Recruiters don't come cheap. So let's say you're paying a recruiter 20% of an annual salary. Let's assume your annual salary is 150 to 200K minimum, right? Minimum, let's say 200K, depending on where you're based. So you're talking about 40, 50K investment just to get that person on board. And then you do all the onboarding, get them ingrained in the team and so on. And a year down the road, you decide it's not the right fit or it's not the right time.
That's a lot. Yeah, it's rough if it doesn't work out.
Exactly. So, and at the same time, the fractional CMO does come in at a fraction of the cost of what a full-time CMO is as well. That's also important to note. So, So yeah.
That's a lot of good reasons. I want to talk about you personally because you clearly have a passion for this. What do you love about marketing in the SaaS world?
So a bit of my background, right, I think is important. I come from, when I was growing up, I did all types of jobs. I loved being busy. I loved doing stuff. I loved always having something on. If there was, even in school, if we were offered 10 different courses, I'd choose 9 of them because it was possible, right? So I'd always be doing stuff, right? And it's the same came into the business world. So when I started in business, I was I started as a seller. I studied marketing. So I studied marketing. I got my degree in marketing, then went into sales. And then after a number of years when I moved here, because I live in Austria, I'm Irish, I grew up in Ireland, grew up in Dublin, moved to Austria back in 2009. When just as I moved here, I decided, hey, I wanted to go back into marketing. And going into marketing, then I went to a multinational and it was a super slow moving company. And I was there for almost 5 years or 4 years and it drove me absolutely insane. It was like, in that time though, I learned a lot. Like I managed to be, to get to grips with marketing automation. I became like the global champion for Marketo. So that actually made me quite attractive when it came to hiring with other companies in Vienna. So I found a job in SaaS, right? But not volume SaaS, but high ticket SaaS. So I worked for a company called Emarsis, which was then later acquired by SAP a number of years ago in marketing automation for retailers. And I came on board there and it was like moving from like, I don't know. What's the best way? Going from a merry-go-round to a roller coaster is probably the best way to describe this situation, you know? And I loved it. It was insane, the change in pace, right? And the pace just never died. It was just always, let's go. Like you're constantly looking like, okay, what's the sales cycle on and how can we get stuff in so that we're hitting that sales cycle next time? And I just loved that speed and pace and, you know, just the craziness of it, to be honest with you. And I sort of fell in love with that. And since coming on to Emarsis as 10 years ago now, it's just this pace at which I've been able to progress my career and the learning and everything during that time has just been immense. Like when I first came on with Emarsis, they got like 60 million in funding, right? And I was working with marketing budgets big, like I was working in a multinational, but I didn't have 60 million to go burn. But you know, but it was that's the thing that I love about SaaS in that you can learn so much in such a short space of time that opens up so many opportunities for you in your career, and it just continues that way. And the pace is just exciting, right? There's so many possibilities.
Totally agree. I love it for all those reasons as well. You're right. The pace is great, and you just continue to do and build, and it's just so cool. What I want to ask you is, there's a lot of people out there, and you start talking to them, you start working with them, who are trying to build their companies, and it's just not working. So, when it comes to a marketing perspective, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you're seeing software leaders making that's really hampering their growth?
So, it depends on stage as well, but one of the things that I see a huge amount of times, especially if they don't have that CMO position, is that they don't necessarily have a plan. And this also comes into play as well with a founder-led or a founder and CEO. If the CEO is the founder, typically they're the ones that have the final say on everything, and the founder's then running the marketing team or telling the marketing team what to do, and they're just wagging their tails and saying, yeah, no problem, let me do that. And they're just being busybodies and they're not really achieving anything, right? And I see that at so many organizations where I go in and say, okay, do you have something written down as a marketing plan? Like something that has a goal or a target that's somewhat connected up to revenue targets of the organization or supporting the sales target. It doesn't necessarily mean that every marketing team needs to have a revenue target, but at least the activities that they're doing are supporting the sales team in order to hit that revenue target, or supporting the business in order to hit that revenue target. And a lot of times that's just not there. It's like, hey, do this. Hey, we need t-shirts. We need the booth design for the next event. We need this, we need that. And it's just random stuff being thrown over the wall at the marketing team. And they're just like, okay, fine, I'll do this and I'll do that. And it's not aligned. There's no consistency to it. It's just messy. And there's no priority setting. And that is bound to fail, right? And that's when it comes to the marketing team, or when it comes to getting some like finding growth through your marketing efforts, it is so important to have that plan in place. And I know that sounds simple, and it's just an easy concept. I'll have a plan. And then if you, like the old saying, you know, fail to plan, plan to fail, right?
True.
Really, without having a plan down on paper and everybody knows their roles and responsibilities and what they're working towards and what their targets are based on individual teams within the marketing org, then it's never going to work. And you're just wasting money on having that resource there. It's never, ever going to be efficient for you. And that's probably the number one mistake I see when it comes to marketing within SaaS orgs: lack of a plan.
Yeah, I see that a lot. And I'm so glad that you say that, because everybody who's listening, who's been here for a while, knows that I preach process on the sales side. And you've got to have a process. You have to have a plan. You have to have it all organized so that everybody's on the same page and preaching the same stuff. It's the same thing in marketing. And if you don't have it there, it's also going to fail and die. And I love that you're saying this. It's just music to my ears. So what can you say, Andy? What are some of the best strategies that companies can put in place to help them scale, to help them become that dream organization that they're hoping for?
Create a plan. No,
do a plan.
So it's one of the things, but it's also important that if you bring, so you need to bring in somebody that knows what they're doing, first of all, to run the marketing efforts. Marketing is not, it's not something that everybody can do, although everybody thinks it is something that they can do. So everybody sees the end result and goes, hey, I'd be able to create that. But hey, a lot of people would see a Picasso and say, hey, I'd be able to create that, but you'd probably be able to stencil it or copy it, right? But to actually get to that end result is very tricky, right?
Truth.
To have that original thinking to get there and the original creativity to get there and to follow the process in order to get there is very tricky, right? So I think you need to bring on somebody that has been around the block a little bit, but not somebody like, and again, this goes on the stage as well. If you're mid-stage scaling, if you're a scale-up organization, you don't want to be bringing in a seasoned marketing leader that's not going to want to roll up their sleeves and get stuff done. That's always an issue that I see, and I've seen this across the board with many companies that I've worked with, and also companies that CEOs are friends and so on, and they put CMOs in front of me and they say, hey, this guy's a great fit. He's been with this company that's seen an exit, and that company that's seen an exit, and this company that's at 150 million ARR, and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, that's great, but you're currently at 15 million ARR. I mean, are they willing to work with your team of 5 marketers in order to make sure that shit is getting done, as well as having this very, very high level strategy? And that's always an issue, because, they will. But so many times I see they say I hired them, and then 12 months later, sorry, they weren't willing to roll up the sleeves, and they weren't sitting down with the team and holding their hand and bringing them to the next level and so on. But the strategy, to go back to what you were saying, I think it's connecting, first of all, the marketing plan up to whatever the strategic goals of the organization are. So going back to your seasoned or not seasoned marketing leader, but a marketing leader that has some experience, to be able to have a seat at the head table. So understand what's happening and which way the vision of the company is going, and what other organizations within that organization or other teams within that organization are working towards. So to have a solid KPI framework. So for example, an OKR framework, which many people will be familiar with, objectives and key results, right? And then everybody bases their objectives and key results off the top level company objectives and key results. And if you're able to roll that out as a CEO, and then make sure that your marketing team then are enabled, or your marketing leaders then enabled to deliver on those objectives and key results, that's also important, right? That the CEO doesn't come in and start kicking over doors again and being like, hey, no, I want to do this, so the marketing team need to work on the t-shirts for the business run instead of doing something that's going to drive leads, right? That's important. So that buy-in factor from head leadership into marketing is very important, and to give somebody the power and trust that person to allow them to go run that team effectively, along with the plan that they're going to create in order to hit the company goals, right? And then when it comes to a couple of other things, it's really important that the sales and marketing teams are aligned. And people always say, this is going to be your next question: how do you get sales and marketing teams aligned? Well, I use an analogy, right? It's not even an analogy. It's happened to me a number of times. When I go into an organization, I'll sit down with the head of marketing or whoever it is. If I'm coaching somebody, say, okay, how often are you meeting with your counterpart in sales? So if you're the head of marketing, who's the head of sales? This person's the head of sales. Okay, great. How often are you meeting with them? Well, every couple of months, whatever, So, okay, you're not even talking. So let's start with talking. And then we'll take it from there, right? So even in a lot of cases, you find that the marketing and sales teams aren't even talking. And once you start talking with sales, then you'll start to find, oh, you know what? They're not just saying that my leads are shitty, or excuse my French, the leads are bad, right? They're not just saying the leads are bad. They might be, but there's actually other reasoning behind it. And maybe they're not seeing the full picture. Maybe they don't understand exactly what's happened with that lead. They don't know where that lead's come from. And sometimes says like, I'm not following up on marketing leads. It's a waste of my time. And so if you sit down with a salesperson and say, okay, marketing have just paid $500 for that lead. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, I should probably do something with it, right? And it's those interactions that happen between individuals in the sales and marketing team that lead to alignment. But you have to push it. And in my experience, it has to be pushed from the marketing side because sellers are busy selling and closing. That's always it's never, and I never blame a seller for it not working. I'd always blame marketing. And that's a very controversial take for marketers. People don't like to hear that, but I
don't hear a lot of marketers say it that way, but I like it.
It is that way. It's 100% because, as I said, sellers are focused on closing. It's the nature of the beast, right? That's what they do, right? So
for sure,
any time that you can get out of their day in order to take them away from the deals that they're trying to open and trying to close and hit their number is time that you should be seeing as gold. And you're able to get alignment between you and whoever's on that counterpart role in the sales org. And that's probably the most important.
I totally agree. And I love you're speaking about that alignment because that is what I was going to ask you. I think that it's critical for marketing and sales to be absolutely aligned. And it's just one of those natural kind of places where people can butt heads. I worked in restaurants for a long time growing up, and, cooks and servers naturally butt heads. They have almost different objectives, and the servers want the food quickly. The cooks think the servers are bugging them too much. And it's just frustrating. Same thing in marketing and sales. There's that headbutting. But you're right. The ideal situation is for your sellers just to be closing, and marketers just keep feeding them opportunity. If we can set that up, I think that's the dream. That's what everybody's looking for. And, this has been amazing, but we're coming to time. So if that's what they're looking for, what advice would you give to software leaders who are like, yes, I want that, but how am I going to make that happen? What would you share with them, Andy?
So go to your sales team or go to your head of sales and say, okay, let's work on a list of accounts together. Let's work on our TAM together, our total addressable market, and figure out, okay, like a really great exercise I've done a number of times is building out that TAM alongside the sales leaders, sitting down and really mapping that out properly by tiers and saying, okay, within our tier 1 accounts, let's define what a tier 1 account is between us. A tier 1 account is, for example, anything that's going to drive over this amount of revenue for us. A tier 2 is anything over this amount, and between that and the top amount. And tier 3 is the lowest tier, right? And I would say then, okay, out of these 3 tiers, we know that in our core markets, so let's say, for example, our core markets are the UK and the US. I can say in the US, we have tier 1s, we have 50 accounts, tier 2s, we have 100, and in tier 3s, we have 300. Out of those 50 that we said are in tier 1 in the US, how many of those are realistically we're going to be able to get into sales cycles with this year? And then let's go hammer the hell out of them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you and your team air support so that when you guys are doing outreach into those accounts, they're going to be warm. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do ads against those accounts across numerous platforms. I'm going to do direct mailers across those accounts. I'm going to create dinners. I'm going to do special events that are just for those guys. And we start to create this like little mini account plan, same as what a seller would do. If they're going after, they're not just going to go and say, today I'm going to go out and call up 50 accounts, right? That's never going to work. They have a plan in terms of which accounts they want to go target, and those accounts then are warmed up through cadences that they're going and focusing on those accounts with. I'll then help on the marketing side to make sure that when you're picking up the phone or when you're sending an email, they're not like, hey, this is Andy calling from andyculligan.com, and they say, who from where? They're like, who? Oh, yeah, I know andyculligan.com because you guys are surrounding. you know?
Yep.
And then again, we'll do tailored stuff towards those tier 1 accounts. We'll spend extra money, which will be very personalized towards those accounts. As I mentioned, things like direct mailers, right? This is something that works really well. People say direct mail works. And direct mail works so well if you do it right. If you personalize the heck out of a direct mailer, people are gonna have fun with it. That's the most important thing. You have to have fun with it. If you send somebody something fun that you spent like $100 on, it's gonna be recognized, right?
For sure.
So I've got example of that, by the way. So when I worked at a company, Exponia, a number of years ago, we wanted to target tier 1 retailers in the UK. And we were in that space a minnow in comparison to Adobe and Oracle and Salesforce. But we did a takedown campaign on Adobe, Oracle and Salesforce, whereby we created Jenga. We bought like every Jenga set in the UK we bought. You're familiar with Jenga, the game, right?
Yeah.
Hasbro, the company that were selling Jenga, were like, what the hell are you guys doing? We're like, oh, don't worry about it. Then what we did was we got a sleeve created, which we then pushed over. We placed them over every single Jenga set. And on the messaging was very simple. It was like, is your data built to last, or is your data stack going to fall? And the messaging then that we also placed into that was, larger acquired clouds are more likely to have dodgy data because they're stitched together using various different tools. And it was a play against those larger acquired cloud platforms. And we sent them out alongside a handwritten note from sales to those key accounts that the sellers were then trying to chase. And with that, we actually closed one of the biggest retailers in the UK. And that's
amazing.
That's how little things like that got us very close with the sales team, because they were like, this is awesome. You know, like people are putting stuff up on LinkedIn, photos of them playing Jenga in their office and tagging us and saying, thanks for sending us a Jenga set, right? And it's just like a nice in, right? Direct mail. So great. Things like that. Little things that you're going to do with the seller to say, hey, I'm going to send this into your account. It's going to help warm it up for you. And that's how you create that alignment. That's how you create that account plan.
So cool. I love it. And just thinking outside the box and doing something different that other companies are not doing is so critical. So that is absolute gold there, Andy. And I really appreciate you sharing it with us. We have run out of time. I want to make sure people know how to get in touch with you. What's the best way to learn more about you?
People can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you'll just find me at Andy Culligan. Come to the website, andyculligan.com. Watch this space. As I mentioned earlier on, we have a new project which is going to be launched in September. Alongside that, I'm also launching a new podcast with that to help promote the new project. We've got really interesting people on, so all of the sales and marketing influencers you could think of. Plus some very interesting guests as well. I've got an astronaut coming on. I've got an adventurer that rode across the Atlantic from New York to Galway in Ireland. He's coming on. So definitely,
that's cool.
Bit of an interesting mix, but it's I think people are going to like it. So yeah, that's coming up. So watch out for that.
Very cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. And we'll put that into the show notes so they know where to connect with you. But Andy, this is awesome. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing all your knowledge.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Matt.
You're welcome. Everybody out there, thank you also for being here. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any other gold nuggets like Andy just shared. And that way you'll be able to take that and implement it and start leveling up your company. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Scale Your SaaS. For more help on finding great leads and closing more deals, go to mattwolach.com.